My name is Helen Simmons, 29 years old. For 6 years, I believed I was building a future with Randy Mitchell, my boyfriend. We'd been saving for a house together, something modest, but ours a 3-bedroom place with sunlight in the kitchen and enough space for a dog someday. 3 years of shared sacrifice built that savings. Every extra shift I took, every vacation we skipped, every time we chose store-brand pasta over name brand, it all went into one goal, our home. $42,000 in a joint account. The closing date was next Friday. The sellers had already moved out. We'd even picked paint colors. That morning, everything ended. It started with an Instagram notification. Randy had posted a story, him and 5 of his friends at the airport holding champagne glasses. The caption said, "Freedom first, rings later." At first, I thought it was some old memory. Then I saw the timestamp posted 20 minutes ago. My stomach tightened. I opened our banking app. The number hit me like ice water, $247.13. The rest over $40,000 was gone. I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. Then I checked again. Same balance. He'd emptied the account while I was asleep beside him. I didn't scream, I didn't cry, I didn't even text him. I just stood, walked out of the office, and told my manager I had a family emergency. At the bank, the teller was kind but useless. Since it's a joint account, she said he was legally allowed to withdraw it. My first mistake, I thought. Trust. She printed the transaction record anyway. Line after line of charges hit me like slow punches: 6 flight tickets to Cabo, a resort booking luxury shopping designer luggage. I left the bank numb, not angry yet, just hollow. Then I went to our mortgage broker. Her name was Janet. She turned pale as I explained. "Helen, without that payment, we'll lose the rate lock in 72 hours, she said. "If you can't replace the funds, the sellers will back out." 3 years gone, just like that. That night I sat at the kitchen table surrounded by receipts, coffee cups, and 3 years of effort. I opened a new savings account under my name only and transferred what was left, $147. Then I combed through every document, every email, every deposit. By dawn, I had a full record color-coded timestamp proof of everything. I'd contributed $31,420. Randy had contributed $10,580. The rest was interest. I opened his tablet. He'd forgotten to log out. I found searches that made my skin crawl. Can girlfriend sue for taking money from joint account? How long to transfer funds before closing? And a confirmation email for the trip sent 2 weeks earlier. He'd planned it, every bit of it. I typed up a single-page summary titled Financial Reconciliation, Randy Mitchell. It read, "Original joint savings $42,000, your contribution $10, $580, 25.2%. My contribution $31, $420, 74.8%. Amount withdrawn by you. $40, $753. Amount you were entitled to, $10, $580. Amount taken through deception, $30, $173. Immediate consequences, mortgage canceled, lost earnest money, $2,000, lost rate, lock, $500, potential seller. Lawsuit pending. Congratulations, Randy. You've achieved full financial independence. No ring, no home, no us." I placed the folder on the kitchen counter beside his forgotten passport. On top of it, I set a printout of his Instagram post, the caption circled in red ink. Then I whispered, "You wanted freedom. Here it is." When I left that apartment, I didn't look back. I didn't answer the phone when the first calls came in, because by the time his plane landed, every account was locked, every payment reversed, every trace of me removed from his safety net. He thought he'd taught me a lesson about independence. He was about to learn what real consequences felt like. When he reads that last line, I hope it steals his breath the way he stole my future. It didn't take long for the chaos to reach me. The moment his plane touched down in Cabo, everything began to unravel exactly how I knew it would. Randy forgot his passport. The irony almost made me laugh. He'd been so desperate to leave to prove some twisted idea of freedom that he left the one thing he couldn't travel without, sitting right there on the counter under the folder I'd left for him. The first call came from his friend Melody. We'd met a few times before polite small talk at birthdays and barbecues. Her voice was hesitant when she said, "Helen, I just wanted to say I'm sorry. Randy's losing it down here." "Losing it?" I asked. "He didn't realize he couldn't get back without his passport. He's stuck at the resort. He keeps yelling at staff. The others don't even want to be around him. Tell him," I said calmly, "that everything he needs is waiting for him back home." She paused. "You mean that folder?" "I do. I hung up. The next 24 hours were quiet. Too quiet. Then the messages started, one after another like a timeline of guilt. Hour 3. Anger. You had no right to touch my accounts. That was our money. Hour 10. Justification. You're overreacting, Helen. I just needed a break. You work too much, you wouldn't understand. Hour 16. Bargaining. Let's just talk, please. I'll fix this. I'll pay you back. Don't do anything stupid. Hour 24. Panic. I can't leave the country without insurance coverage. The resort's charging my card. Please pick up. I didn't reply to any of them. Instead, I had my cousin Garrett answer one of his calls. Garrett said, "Randy, she asked me to let you know everything you're looking for is in that folder." Apparently, Randy's meltdown was spectacular. Melody sent me a short video clip from her phone. Randy, red-faced, shouting in the middle of the resort lobby, accusing me of financial abuse. Security had to escort him out. In the background, guests whispered and stared. He always used to say I was too calm, too rational. Now that calm was destroying him. By day 2, he'd stopped pretending he was in control. I watched his Instagram stories vanish one by one until his account went silent. Then came a new message from an unfamiliar number. His father. "Helen, this is Richard Mitchell. I'm calling on behalf of my son. I understand there's been a misunderstanding." I almost smiled. That's one word for it. He sighed. His tone was careful, measured, professional, the voice of a man who'd spent years cleaning up his son's messes. "Surely we can resolve this without legal escalation." "Mr. Mitchell," I said evenly, "your son stole $30,000 and ruined our mortgage. I have full documentation, every receipt, every screenshot." "Helen, I don't think he meant to." "He planned it," I interrupted. "There are email confirmations from 2 weeks ago. He transferred the money while I was sleeping." Silence stretched for a moment before he said, "I see. Tell him he has 48 hours to return the funds, or I file for theft by deception." He didn't argue. He just sighed again. "Understood." I could almost hear the weight of his disappointment through the phone. 2 days later, Melody texted me again. "He's losing friends fast. Everyone found out where the money came from." Apparently, Randy's own group chat turned on him when they realized their vacation was funded by stolen money. Melody said one girl even called her parents to buy her a flight home. By the 3rd day, Randy's calls slowed. The last message he sent read, "I hope you're proud of yourself." I didn't answer. Pride had nothing to do with it. It wasn't revenge. I felt it was relief. For the first time in years, I didn't owe him an explanation for anything. That night, I sat alone in the quiet and reread the printout I'd left him. The line at the bottom still made me smile without joy. "Congratulations, Randy. You're officially independent." He wanted freedom. Now he had it in a foreign country, broke, humiliated, and very, very alone. By the 4th day, the silence broke again. This time with a knock on my door. When I opened it, Randy's father, Richard, was standing there exhausted but composed, holding a leather briefcase and wearing the expression of a man who'd aged 10 years in 4 days. "Helen," he said, "I've just flown back from Cabo." He didn't need to tell me why. The dark circles under his eyes said everything. I let him in. He didn't ask to sit, but he did anyway, carefully placing his briefcase on his knees. "He's home," Richard said, "and he's not handling this well." "I'm sure he isn't." He nodded once, as if I'd confirmed something he already knew. "He's been suspended from work. His friends cut him off. His credit cards are frozen. He's paying for his choices." "That's good," I said simply. Richard exhaled. "He'll repay you. I promise you that." I looked at him closely. "Do you promise as his father or as his lawyer?" For a moment, something flickered behind his calm eyes, guilt maybe. Then he said both. That evening, Randy came himself. He didn't knock politely this time. He stood outside my door, his voice strained, but still trying to sound in control. "Helen, we need to talk." I didn't answer at first, but curiosity got the better of me. When I opened the door, his face looked hollow, sunburned from Cabo, dark crescents under his eyes, the smile gone. 48 hours are up, I said. "What are you here for?" "To fix this," he said quickly. "You've made your point. I'll make it right. You'll return the money." He hesitated. "I don't have it. Not all of it. I spent some most before I knew you were serious." "Before you knew I was serious," I repeated. "You took $40,000 from the life we were building and thought I'd just shrug." "Helen, it was our money. You act like you were the only one saving. I was the only one planning." He rubbed his face, pacing like a caged animal. "You always controlled everything. Every dollar, every decision, every future plan. I felt trapped." "Trapped," I said quietly. "You were the one who wanted to marry me, Randy." "That's not—" He stopped, realizing how small he sounded. "I just needed a break." I crossed my arms. "You took a vacation. from responsibility. He tried tears next, his voice softened, shaky. Helen, please. 6 years. Doesn't that mean anything to you? I stared at him. It meant everything. That's why it hurts this much. Then he said something that almost made me laugh. If you keep this up, everyone will think you're vindictive, cruel. No man will want you after this. I couldn't help it. I actually laughed. Oh, Randy, you already told everyone yourself. Remember, freedom first rings later. You made sure they all saw who you are. The color drained from his face. You're enjoying this. No, I said, but I am done protecting you. He took a step toward me. If you go to court, I'll fight back. I'll tell them you manipulated me, that you— Stop! I held up a hand. There's nothing left to threaten me with. You've already done your worst. He stared at me for a long time, then lowered his head. You've changed. I had to, I said. You left me no choice. He left without another word. An hour later, my phone rang again. This time it was Linda, his mother. Her voice trembled. Helen, dear, I don't even know what to say. I'm mortified. This isn't how we raised him. I appreciate that, Mrs. Mitchell. Please let us make this right. Richard and I will handle repayment. He's already listing Randy's car and jewelry. You'll get your money back. Her voice cracked a little at the end. I'm just so sorry. There was a long pause, and then she asked softly, Helen, is there any chance you could forgive him? I stared at the empty boxes around my apartment, the ones meant for the house we'd never move into. Forgiveness, I said finally. Maybe someday. But reconciliation never. Linda whispered. For what it's worth, you would have been a wonderful daughter-in-law. When I hung up, I felt a strange stillness. Not victory, not even satisfaction. Just quiet. The kind of quiet that comes after a storm destroys everything when you finally see what's still standing. The next week blurred into paperwork numbers and the dull hum of exhaustion. Randy didn't contact me again. I think even he knew the silence was safer. A letter arrived from Richard Formal, polite. The kind written by a man used to settling disasters. Enclosed was a check for $22,000 and an itemized breakdown. Sale of Randy's car, $11,000. Liquidation of his jewelry, $3,000. Retirement withdrawal, $4,000. Personal check from Richard himself, $4,000. He also included a promissory note signed by Randy for the remaining balance, $173, payable in monthly installments of $340 for 2 years. I didn't need a crystal ball to know I'd never see that money, but I didn't care. It was enough to make things right legally, and that was all I wanted. Richard's closing line stuck with me. Consider this repayment not from my son, but from his conscience, one he has yet to find. For the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to breathe. The lawsuit from the sellers settled soon after. Richard had quietly paid their $8,500 claim in full. The mortgage fell through, but at least my name was cleared. No breach, no lawsuit, no stain on my record. Meanwhile, Randy was busy rewriting history. He posted a long paragraph on social media claiming he'd escaped a financially controlling relationship and was rebuilding his life after years of emotional manipulation. If I hadn't lived it myself, I might have believed him. But his friends didn't. Melody, the same one who'd called me from Cabo, sent screenshots of their group chat. Randy had borrowed money from half of them over the years. 50 here, 200. They're always with promises to pay it back. He never did. When Melody revealed that the Cabo trip was funded by our stolen down payment, the group imploded. Within an hour, he was kicked from every chat. Then came the fallout. He lost his job at the marketing firm officially for absenteeism, but everyone knew the real reason. He'd missed nearly a week of work for mental health recovery while his coworkers found tagged photos of him drinking on the beach. The company had a zero-tolerance attendance policy. They didn't even give him severance. I didn't gloat. There was nothing left to win. I'd already learned that revenge doesn't fix the past, it just stops it from repeating. One evening, Linda called again. Her voice was soft, exhausted. Helen, he's at home with us for now. He's angry, ashamed. I think he finally understands what he's done. Does he? I asked quietly. She hesitated. Maybe not yet, but life is starting to teach him. I could hear the sadness in her words. Not for me, for her son. For the boy she raised, who thought selfishness was strength. Before she hung up, she said something that stayed with me. You were the only one who ever challenged him. Maybe that's why he both loved and resented you. I sat in silence long after she hung up thinking about that. She was right. I had challenged him to grow, to plan, to think beyond himself. But he'd mistaken love for control. And now his rebellion had left him stranded in the wreckage of his own choices. I spent the next days rebuilding. I closed the old joint account for good. I opened a new one in my name only and started saving again. Not for a shared future this time, just for me. I took the $22,000 repayment, added the refunded deposits from the ring and birthday plans, and started fresh with $26,000. It wasn't what I'd lost, but it was enough to begin again. Late one night, I scrolled through Randy's old posts, the ones he hadn't deleted yet. The smiling photos, the captions about building together, the comments from me cheering him on. They felt like relics from a life that belonged to someone else. I deleted every one of my tags, then closed the app. The air in my apartment felt lighter. The next morning, I got a message from Melody again. You probably don't care, but Randy's trying to start some self-pity campaign online. People aren't buying it. He's losing followers by the hour. I typed back. He'll learn eventually. You're not mad, she asked. I wrote, now I'm just done. Later that week, Linda called one last time. Helen. She said quietly, he's looking for a job. Richard won't give him a penny more. He's selling old furniture for rent money. I'm sorry it's come to that, I said honestly. I'm not, she said after a long pause. Maybe it's the only way he'll finally understand what independence really means. That night I opened my laptop, logged into my new account, and stared at the balance glowing on the screen. $26,000. Not a fortune, but it was mine, untouched, earned. For the first time in a long time, I slept without waking up to check if something had been taken from me. It had been nearly 2 months since I'd last heard his name spoken aloud. Life had become quiet again, beautifully, mercifully quiet, until the envelope came. No return address, just my name written in the same looping handwriting that used to sign birthday cards and grocery notes. Inside was a 4-page handwritten letter. At first I thought maybe, just maybe, it would be an apology, but no, it was a manifesto. He wrote that I'd ruined his life over one mistake, that I was vindictive, cold, and money-obsessed, that while I was living comfortably, he was suffering. One sentence stopped me cold. I hope you're happy knowing you destroyed someone who loved you. Loved me. If this was love, it had been a kind that drained, used, and left. I didn't finish the last page. I folded the letter back up and slipped it into another envelope addressed to Richard Mitchell. Inside, I wrote a single line. You might want to consider therapy for him. A week later, my cousin Garrett came over with news that caught me off guard. He and his girlfriend had finally used the couple's massage voucher I'd given them months ago, the same one I'd once booked for Randy and me. When Garrett told me where it was, I almost laughed. It was the exact same spa I'd chosen back then. But that wasn't the part that mattered. When they arrived, the receptionist looked up and froze. It was Randy. Garrett described it perfectly, how Randy tried to smile, how his face went white when he saw them. He had to process their appointment, hand them towels, and wish them a relaxing experience. The poetic symmetry of it all almost felt scripted. The man who once mocked my boring plans now stood behind a desk, earning minimum wage, watching someone else enjoy what was supposed to be our romantic weekend. Garrett said he looked empty, like he'd burned through every excuse he'd ever had and was finally left alone with himself. Later that night, Garrett texted me again. He looked like he wanted to disappear. You'd have felt bad if you saw it, but I didn't, not anymore. I wasn't cruel, just done carrying sympathy for someone who had none for me. I sat by my window, rereading the note I'd left him months ago, still saved as a draft on my computer. You wanted independence, Randy. You got it. He had fought so hard to be free from what he called control. Now he was free from stability, from comfort, from love, from everything we built. And I was free too. Free from explaining myself. Free from waiting for apologies that would never come. Free from believing that love meant rescuing someone who refused to grow up. The next morning, Linda sent me a short email. We received your letter. You were right. Therapy already in progress. He bounced a check for his car insurance this week. Thank you for the wake-up call we couldn't give him. I stared at those words for a long time before closing my laptop. Some people learn through pain. Some only learn when the world stops saving them. He was finally learning too late, but learning all the same. I made tea, sat on the balcony of my small apartment, and felt the air shift around me. There was no triumph in it, no lingering bitterness, just quiet acceptance. He'd wanted independence, now he had it, every miserable ounce of it. And for the first time, I finally understood something. I never had before. Sometimes peace doesn't come from forgiveness, but from letting someone live with their own choices. I drove past it last Sunday, the house that used to be ours, or at least the one that was supposed to be. The blue shutters we had argued about were still there. The for sale sign was gone. A new family had moved in. A woman knelt by the front garden planting flowers. A man mowed the lawn. Two small children chased a dog across the yard, laughing so hard they could barely breathe. For a second, I just sat there in my car, staring through the windshield. It should have hurt more than it did, but all I felt was a quiet ache, a kind of distant grief for a future that no longer belonged to me. That could have been us. If he hadn't taken everything, if he'd just waited one more week, if he'd believed in us the way I believed in him. But the truth hit me gently, not cruelly. Even if we'd moved in, he would have ruined it eventually. The cracks were already there. I just hadn't wanted to see them. When I got home, I found an email from my new lender. Congratulations, your mortgage has been approved. It wasn't for that dream house. It was for a small condo, 1 bedroom, 1 balcony, nothing special by anyone else's standards. But it was mine. Every square foot, every nail, every payment. Mine alone. I signed the final document, sent it off, and closed my laptop. The silence in my apartment didn't feel lonely anymore. It felt earned. Later that evening, I visited Garrett. He and his girlfriend were still teasing each other about the spa encounter. She said he looked like he'd seen a ghost, Garrett told me, laughing. Maybe he did, I said quietly. The ghost of the person he used to be. Garrett gave me a look, half proud, half protective. You did the right thing, you know, he said. If you'd forgiven him, he'd have learned nothing. I didn't do it to teach him anything, I said. I did it to survive. He nodded. Still, you're stronger than most would have been. When I got home, I poured myself a glass of wine and stood by the window. The city lights blurred like soft stars below. Somewhere out there, he was probably still trying to rebuild, posting about growth or fate or whatever story helped him sleep. Maybe one day he'll find peace, but that's not my story anymore. Mine starts here quietly, without applause, without witnesses. I took one last look at the printout I'd kept all this time, the financial reconciliation document I'd left him months ago. The paper was creased from folding the ink, faded a little, but the words still stood sharp and certain. I thought about the rumor Garrett mentioned, how Randy still carried that same printout folded up in his wallet, like a scar he couldn't forget. Good, I thought. Maybe it'll remind him that freedom without integrity is just chaos dressed up as courage. I closed my eyes and whispered to the quiet room. You wanted independence, Randy. You got it. Then, after a pause, I added softly, and so did I. I looked out at the skyline one last time,